Got to hear that wapango one last time. Oh, no, one more time. Well, hello out there, Rotarians and guests. That sound was the sound of wapango, one of the pieces of music that I will introduce. Every month I'll have something different. I'm hoping to do marimbas next month. Last month we did some mariachi, and let's see if I can come up with some other music on subsequent months. So today is meeting number 5,263, according to, I guess, to start off with Bob Keeve, counting from when we first started, first founded to the present. I haven't checked it out. So August birthdays are today, and you see there in front of you, everyone that celebrates a birthday, check them out. And of course, today is Erica Gassaway's birthday. There she is, born and raised in Sacramento. She's a graduate from my old law school area, UC Davis. She worked for 10 years at Intel, and is now she went to Santa Clara Law School and is a litigation attorney at Hopkins and Carley, defending real estate companies and banks. So happy birthday to you, Erica. And also we want to play the KTVU piece that advertised our van from last week.
Not KTVU.
No, it was by KTVU that sent it over to NBC. Sorry.
The Rotary Club of San Jose donating this multi-use van to Catholic Charities of Santa Clara County. The idea is to use the van to reach homeless people as well as those living in underserved communities. The van is equipped to provide a variety of services, including COVID testing and delivering food and supplies.
We just hope that the people out in the community can know about this, know that this is available. Let Catholic Charities know if they find a need somewhere, a particular pocket where they could use someone like this van can deliver, and just call them up.
The Rotary Club is very helpful in so many communities. The club says some people are afraid of government agencies right now, but seeing the Catholic Charities van will make them feel safe.
Well, thanks for that, because Maggie Padovani, who's the district PR chair, helped us get a lot of press on this in so many different areas. And as I mentioned, it was pointed out by Stu Gantz, it was NBC that delivered that, but it was originally taped by KTVU, who evidently loaned it out. Next, we've got Carl Salas to do the inspirational thought of the day. He's the past president, 2013 and 14, founder and managing principal of Salas O'Brien Engineering in San Jose, who was the first energy auditing firm in the United States. Carl, you ready, boy?
Sure, Fernando.
Hit it.
You can hear me okay, right?
Absolutely.
Inspiration today, are you kidding? What are you talking about, man? I'm talking about heavy lifting. So I want to start with this photo. It's a metaphor for what I think is going on right now. I ride my bike on the Guadalupe River Trail 3 or 4 times a week. And you know, for a long time, I've been seeing a lot of homeless encampments and garbage. But in the last 8 weeks, about 8 or 10 weeks ago, we started having these fires. And what you're looking at is an area that was all green. The trees and the shrubs were healthy. There was full ground cover. I mean, it's one of the nicer parts of the park. And what you're looking at is ash and dirt really in those burned out trees. So that, my fellow Rotarians, is a metaphor for what's going on now. The fires today, it was tough to even get up. The COVID thing, most of us are in limbo at best and distressed and depressed at worst. Employment is distressed and in transition. Politics, distressed and in transition. But I want to show you the other side of this metaphor. Take a look at the base of this tree. See that tree right there? Now go to the next slide.
Aww.
The fire happened 8 weeks ago, 8 weeks only. And from fire and destruction to greenery happened in 8 weeks, and it hasn't even rained. If you look at all the other areas around those fires, in 8 weeks with no rain, There's new growth everywhere. Now let me tell you about a Rotary Downtown Development Committee meeting I attended a few weeks ago. Mike Block was a speaker. He's on this, I think it's a city task force that's working with business to define the new normal. But he used a phrase I hadn't heard. He referred to a better normal. It was a nuance, but the phrase a better normal really inspired me, and I hope it begins to inspire you. Everything is so strange now. It is like nothing I've experienced in my life, professionally or personally. So, what better time is there to rethink your opportunities, redirect your energy, even go after crazy ideas and dreams? Now's the time. We will all remember 2020 as a tough year, but 2021 is only a few months away and it's still unwritten. Maybe, just maybe, you are the writer who will give yourself a new script, the writer who will create a better business plan, or the writer who will take this city and valley to a better normal, the one that no one even envisions yet. Mm. So today I want to inspire you to look closely at what's sprouting all around us and realize that now more than ever, a better normal is in your hands. A better normal is in our hands. I, for one, am going to go into 2021 swinging, and I hope that all of you will join me, at least metaphorically. Thanks, and let's go get them.
Thank you, Carl. And send us some of that energy, will you? Next, we got Terry Chapman. She's from Maryland. She's got an engineering degree from Catholic University, and for 15 years traveled the world with Sun Microsystems in international business development. Now she's a hospice volunteer. She and Helen Lambert co-chair the Red Badge Committee, and Terry's going to give us an update. You ready, Terry? Come in, Terry Chapman.
There we go. I just had to unmute myself. So yes, I'm ready. So the Red Badge Committee generally does 2 projects a year. And our spring project this year was supposed to be a Veggielutions. We were going to be building a chicken coop there. And unfortunately with COVID, it got delayed, and we hope at some point we'll be able to do it. But what we have shifted to was we worked with an organization called San Jose Ship Kits. And SHIP Kit stands for Shelter in Place Kits. And it was started by an organization called Urban Community, and they started it about 3 weeks after we started sheltering in place. It provides these kits that we put together provide essential items that include medical, nutritional, and emotional support items for families in need in Santa Clara County. So on July 17th, about a dozen Red Badgers got together for 2 shifts between 11 and 1 and 2 and 4. And the kits were actually assembled at a place called the San Jose the San Jose Armory, which I didn't even know we had one. So it's downtown, not far from where we meet. The boxes we put together had food items such as beans, pasta, rice, canned veggies, as well as snacks, some toiletries, everyday essentials. I know there was some paper towels in there, toilet paper, soap, hand sanitizer, and there were activities for kids. So it was a little bit of everything that you would need during sheltering in place. The organization puts together about 500 to 700 of these kits a week. And they in turn send them to other organizations that distribute them throughout the valley. And they go to places like Hunger at Home, Recovery Cafe, Catholic Charities, Grail Family Services, and AACI. So they get passed through. And as of the date of our project, which was a month ago, they had already put 12,000 of these kits together. So they've made a huge impact in the valley. And I know we were very grateful to be able to be part of that. It was a very rewarding experience. They're always looking, the San Jose Ship Kits organization is always looking for more volunteers and more donations of goods, because whatever goes into the packages depends on what they have available at that time. So it always kinds of changes. It was so well received by the Red Badge Committee that I think we're going to find another date in the fall. And we're also thinking about opening it up to all Rotarians. So stay tuned and we'll see what we pull together. Just for those of you who want to know, the San Jose Armory is a very large warehouse-like space, and it was very easy to physical distance. Everyone wore masks. We had a workspace for everyone. So if you're comfortable generally being about in the community, you would feel comfortable and safe in this kind of environment. We know that we have some red badgers that are not comfortable going out. So if you have any ideas for projects that we could do from home, I'd really like to hear them. So please let me know. And thank you so much, Fernando.
Thanks, Terry. And now we're going to hear a plan that I have of introducing a member of a city council and from our board of supervisors. Once a month, have a city council member come and talk to us about their district, and every other month have someone from the board of supervisors. Today we've got Sergio Jimenez, who, like me, was born in Mexico and was brought here as a child. He became a citizen in 2008, was raised in East San Jose by a single parent mom. He's the first in the family to go to college. He got his BS in poli-sci at San Jose State. And prior to his election to City Council number 2, he founded Oak Grove Neighborhood Association and has served on numerous local organizations. So, Sergio, are you on? You can tell us about the District 2.
I am. Thank you so much for having me. Let me just pull up my some thoughts, because I wanted to be very succinct, because I know I don't have tons of time. But first and foremost, good afternoon, and thank you very much for allowing me to share with you a little bit about my district, and a special thanks to Mr. Sassueta for the invitation. I very much appreciate it. I'm just going to jump into this. District 2 is one of 10 districts across the city of San Jose, and like other districts, its population is a little over 100,000 people. It's bordered by Snell Avenue on the west, Morgan Hill, the city of Morgan Hill on the south, Center Road in the north, and just east of 101 on the east. It really is, as I tell people, a microcosm of the city of San Jose as it relates to ethnic diversity as well as very diverse political opinions. District 2 is also home to our only San Jose Police Department substation. It's home to one of the hospitals in the city, which is Kaiser Santa Teresa. It is also home, and maybe many people don't know this, to many tech companies in the Edenville Technology Park, companies like IBM, Western Digital, and up-and-coming companies like Omega GTI. Now, I wanted to touch on just a few of the accomplishments or things that have been happening in the district to give you a sense as to what we've been up to and what I've been working on. The first thing I'd mention, and I suspect some of you are probably familiar with this, but it's the location in District 2 known as Coyote Valley. Now, this conversation about Coyote Valley and the value that it brings to the city has really been going on for 30 plus years. And I'll say that again, 30 plus years. And so I'm very happy that I was able to play some sort of leadership role along with other city leaders to get the passage of Measure T, which allowed us to secure some money to work in partnership with environmental partners such as the Open Space Authority and Mid-Peninsula Open Space Trust, and just to go ahead and purchase a little under 1,000 acres of prime open space in District 2. So if you go down on Monterey Road, that vast open space between the city of San Jose and Morgan Hill is really that space that we're talking about, the northern part of that. We're very proud of the effort as it finally recognizes the importance of our vibrant open space and the role that the open space plays in cleaning our air, cleaning our water, and really giving us a place to recreate. The other thing I wanted to share about District 2 is additionally with the passage of Measure T about a year or so ago by the voters, we were able to begin looking for a location for a new police training facility that's currently being sited, and we're evaluating different sites, but it's going to be within District 2 as well. And it's very exciting, one, because obviously the police need space to train, but secondly is the police substation that we have actually isn't used for its intended purposes. And so the hope that I and everyone else have here at the city is that once that training facility moves out of the substation, we can actually open up the substation to be a fully functioning substation accessible to the public as it was intended to be. And so very excited about that, and I hope that in the next few months we're going to have more information on that. But that is happening. The other thing I think is important to take away about the district is that it's really dissected through the middle by Union Pacific Railway. You've probably heard some things about quiet zones and blight and things of that nature. But if you think of the term "you've been railroaded," that really stems not from the not so wonderful relationships cities have had with railroad companies. And so It's been challenging over the years working with Union Pacific, but I was happy to have led the charge to really begin discussions about an agreement that didn't exist prior to this discussion, in which Union Pacific acknowledges the obligation they have to the city of San Jose and its residents. And we as a city acknowledge our responsibility to work collaboratively with them to help clean up blight, such as homeless encampments that unfortunately are very unsafe for some of the homeless that live along the tracks, in addition to cleaning up a lot of the graffiti and just general dumping. And so that agreement is actually on the verge of being signed by Union Pacific, and we're very excited about that. And within that agreement, I also hope to include some stipulations around the use of cameras on their property to prevent illegal dumping and things of that nature. The other thing I would quickly touch on, since we're on the topic of trains and railroads, is high-speed rail. I was very happy to have been part of the effort with the mayor and other council members whose districts are impacted by high-speed rail potentially coming through the city of San Jose. And we got them to agree to really take some of the concerns seriously and develop a rail plan with a variety of different other agencies and partners such as VTA, Caltrain, and other such agencies. And so one of the things that people don't realize is that about 3 or 4 of the main crossings through neighborhoods are going to be in District 2. And currently there is no grade separation. And so it's really going to create such an issue with the community that those gates are going to be down upwards of about 30 minutes each hour if in fact there is no grade separation. So we've been pushing them on that, and I think we've made some good headway on having discussions about funding opportunities, discussions we've had with Senator Jim Bell before he leaves office, and things of that nature. So that's something that I'm very proud of the work we've done there. And the other thing I would say is that that we've been working on in District 2, and I know that some folks within Rotary have really taken a leadership role in this, and I'm eternally grateful for your interest in this, and that is the issue of homelessness. Obviously, with the video you just presented on Catholic Charities in the van, I am very much appreciative of that. I think we all need to step up and lend a hand to help move this issue forward in a positive way, and I think what your efforts have really done that. And so I know that the issue of homelessness really weighs heavily on the minds of many, including us as elected officials. And I want to tell you about a few things that we've done in District 2 that I'm proud of. So around the city, we have 3 safe parking locations. That wasn't initially the case. Initially, we were only going to have 1 at Seven Trees Community Center. So I made a recommendation at the time, and this is already maybe a year and a half in, to open up additional sites. That wasn't the original plan. But I'm glad the council supported that. And so that is how we got Roosevelt Community Center to be a safe parking location. And having been the one to recommend this, I actually opened up Southside Community Center in my own district to be an additional safe parking location, which continues to operate to the present day, because unfortunately we have many people living in vehicles. District 2 also stepped up to provide one of the first overnight warming locations in the city. And you might have heard most recently, we were designated as the home for one of the largest bridge housing communities in the city, which is going to be the only district that has 2 sites. And it came with a little controversy, but as I've told the residents, it's been approved, it's being built, and I am committed to making sure that it's successful both for the residents that are going to live there, in addition to being thoughtful and considerate of the residents in the local community. And so those are some of the things we've been working on. Some of the challenges, I'll just end with this, because I know, Fernando, you're watching the time, is just some of the challenges we have is we're a relatively urban or suburban sort of space in District 2. So engaging businesses is challenging because there is no one sort of strip where all the businesses are located. That's challenging. The last thing I would say is that it's also been challenging with the strip of Monterey Road, which is in effect a gateway to the city, has been the site of a lot of dumping. And so working with the county supervisor, City of Morgan Hill, Department of Transportation, to really make that into the gateway to our city that I think it should be. And so those are some of the things we've been working on. I'll stop talking. I'm not sure if there's time for questions or anything else.
No,
but
that's it. You're over the time limit, so we're going to just say, listen, that my request, former President Karen Sinan, who set aside what I'll be personally delivering to your office, coffee table size book on the history of the 100 years of service by our Rotary Club. So thanks very much, Sergio,
Thank you.
and we'll be talking to you. Next,
you.
we're going to use the fine opportunities on the last Wednesday of each month, and we're going to use Gay Crawford here to join us. She came to Rotary in 2001. She's the founder of Cancer Care Point, and she'll tell us how our fine opportunity plan is supposed to work. Okay, Gay, you ready?
Hey, thanks, Fernando. I do have a fine announcement. I'm so glad you changed it from a verb to an adjective. Because if you were in the olden days with the verb and anybody saw the Cancer Care Point website where I'm swearing and looking for the garden party, I think I would be fined big time. So the good news, the fine news is I am no longer lost. I found the garden party. It's going to be Sunday, August 23rd, and it's free.
Well, it sounds like fun. Got any more to tell us about it?
Oh, yes, we really have. You know, these are tough times for nonprofits and this fundraising and trying to maintain our mission. And I really think what's remarkable about this is most of our sponsors have stayed with us, even though there's not a party. We have had auction items from the community that have now amount to about over $100,000. They include.
Well, why don't you just tell us how happy you are about this thing, because we gotta move this along.
I am happy, and thank Sal and Debbie Rice and so many people for the good things. Can I be $100 happy?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All righty.
All right, and that, my friends, is how it works. It's just supposed to be it'll help our foundation. Give Gay Crawford an email. Tell her about your celebration and how many times you want me to ring the bell. Right now, we've got somebody that's going to give us a surprise. Bert George, are you ready?
I'm ready, if you can hear me.
I got you.
Wonderful. Okay.
Fire away. Fire away.
So our Rotary Club for the past 100 years has always had a barbecue. And actually, over the past 20 years or so, we've had 2 barbecues a year. Well, obviously, that's not as easy to do nowadays, but we want to do it. So what we're going to do, the executive chefs and myself, we're going to throw a barbecue for the club. And I think you called it the drive-through barbecue. You can call it the drive-through barbecue, the grab-and-go barbecue, but we're actually going to do this at no cost to all of our members. And how we're going to do it, we're still working on the details of how you're going to come into the park. But imagine driving in, seeing all of our smiling faces behind the barbecue pits. We're going to have some red badgers helping. My bartenders obviously can't do any bartending, but we're going to give you a barbecue for nothing. And I want 100% participation from our club. Thinking about that beautiful steak, the chicken, all those beautiful things. We're going to do some desserts this year that are going to be a little different. Our beloved Shirley Lewis loved these biscotti that were made up in Redwood City, and we're going to, in her honor, do that. And like I said, 100% participation. I want everybody. It's free to you. It's free to a spouse. So every Rotarian can have 2 barbecues. And we'll come up with the details later, but I'd like to give $200 for the fine, and we're going to give a hell of a lot more than that because we're going to give you a barbecue.
All right. Well, that's something that I hope everybody paid attention to. Thank you. Thank you. We want everybody, every Rotarian and a significant other. No guests, no children. We don't want the whole gang to come down, just the Rotarian and the significant other. Is that right, Bert?
That's correct. And then the idea is to grab and go. You'll stay in your car, and if you're nervous about us wearing masks or gloves, we'll have all that. But you don't even have to get out of your car. We'll just put it right in your trunk or give it to you. But just seeing your smiling faces and just getting something done and being together as a club, I think is going to do a lot. I can give you the date, huh? September 16th. It was the original date of our fall barbecue. So it's Wednesday, September 16th, and we'll figure out the times later. But mark it down, and we're going to have a nice little dinner for you.
And where do you want the email to go to tell you whether they want chicken, vegetarian, or beef?
We'll come up with that later. It's going to be in the newsletter coming up tomorrow or Friday.
Very well. Thanks so much.
You got it. Glad to do it.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, so we're going to come up with the speaker's presentation. Remember, just send in questions on the chat box. No other comments at this time. You can do that elsewhere. We've got Suzanne St. John, the CEO of ALF and chair of the program committee, who is going to introduce our speaker. You ready, Suzanne?
I am all in and ready. Thanks, President Fernando. Great to see you all Rotarians. Now I'm hungry, Bert. Thanks. So in December of 2018, Nicole Taylor was named president and CEO of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, the wealthiest community foundation in the country. Following a tumultuous CEO transition, Nicole committed to putting the community back in the Community Foundation. She's led the organization to renew its focus on the many challenges facing residents of San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, calling out and addressing the many inequities our communities struggle with every day. And you may not know this, Rotarians, but in the early months of pandemic response, the Community Foundation raised over $50 million to meet the needs of individuals, families, small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and education systems across 10 counties in the Bay Area. And in April of 2020, Nicole accepted an invitation from San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo to be among the 5 co-chairs of the Silicon Valley Recovery Roundtable. This group of 59 business and community leaders just this week completed their work of developing recommendations of how Silicon Valley will adapt and thrive in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nicole's career path includes serving as Vice President of the Arizona State University Foundation, Deputy Vice President, Dean of Students at ASU, Associate Vice Provost of Student Affairs and Dean of Community Engagement and Diversity at Stanford University, and a 15-year tenure with the East Bay Community Foundation. So, Nicole, this pandemic was not in your job description, but we're so lucky to have you at the helm during this incredibly tumultuous time. Please help me in welcoming Nicole Taylor.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, my friend Suzanne. And thank you, President Fernando, for having me here. I was actually a member of the Oakland Rotary when I was the CEO of the East Bay Community Foundation. So it is great to be back with Rotarians. It's just been too long. It's also, you know, Rotary obviously has a special place in my heart because we model what local business, nonprofits, professional and civic leaders coming together really looks like in service of our communities. And what more urgent time than right now to have that model and Rotary's model of that cross-sector collaboration and partnership to serve our communities. So today I'm going to talk about how community foundations and specifically, you know, drill down on what the Silicon Valley Community Foundation has been doing to meet Bay Area's COVID realities, as well as racial justice challenges. Lay out a little bit of the hurdles. We heard from the council member, you know, some of the data behind, you know, what is really happening in our most vulnerable communities. So I'll talk a little bit about that, as well as the impact we've had. And I have an update on the amount of dollars that we've been able to raise and put into our communities from what Suzanne talked about in my intro. And thank you again, Suzanne, for that. I want to start by pointing out the racial injustices and disparities that have been manifested through COVID-19's effects. And some of you have heard these statistics, but I always like to ground us in what the reality is for so many of our neighbors. Groups that have been hardest hit by the crisis are the ones that were already struggling before the crisis hit: financially strained families, communities of color, undocumented immigrants. We know the ability to minimize risks of contracting the virus, to seek proper health treatment, or to mitigate its economic implications is shaped very deeply by institutional and systemic disparities. Communities of color, our undocumented neighbors are disproportionately affected. They're at risk of losing jobs, working in essential jobs where they have higher risks of contracting the virus and live in closer quarters and cannot practice social distancing. As you see here, July, these are recent numbers. In July, the unemployment rates disproportionately hit communities of color versus white communities. And this is, you know, recent from the Department of Labor. The National Urban League this month just issued a report that nationwide Black populations are 3 times as likely to contract the virus compared to white populations. And here in California, the Mercury News back in July said that our Latinx individuals make up nearly half, 45% of all coronavirus deaths in our state. So in last week, Supervisor Chavez mentioned that there have been more COVID-19 cases in one San Jose zip code, 95127, than in all of Cupertino, Los Gatos, Los Altos, Palo Alto, Saratoga combined. And the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley released a report recently that said that 43,000 renter households in our region are at the highest risk of eviction, and majority of those households consist of undocumented families. So you can see here, if you didn't see that report in May, the Mercury News, it shows the distribution of where the hardest hit communities are. So our response has been rooted in helping our community's most vulnerable neighbors in terms of providing grants, support grants for essential foods, rental assistant medical services. We have prioritized organizations that have been supporting low-wage workers, immigrant families, communities of color. COVID-19 has been an unprecedented health crisis, an economic catastrophe. And community foundations in the region have been positioned to meet ongoing challenges and emergencies like COVID. I will have you know that we have been, these are the community foundations that exist right here in the 10-county Bay Area region, from Santa Cruz County, just south of us, all the way up to Napa and Sonoma counties. And we work very closely together, and there's 40 community foundations across our great state, but the 10, we really consider ourselves this 10 Bay Area region, county region. And over the last 24 hours, we realized that we now have to shift into gear, not either or, on top of what we've been doing for COVID, to think about how we're going to respond to fires and the fire relief. And how do we start identifying what kind of emergency funds are needed? Right before this call, I was in an email exchange with the governor's office because they are trying to figure out how to coordinate response. So we're a little bit in a wait and see mode because we're not quite sure where the need is going to be, how fires are going to be contained, and what the impact is going to be here in our region. I got up this morning, as many of you probably did, and saw ashes falling from the sky and a blood orange sun at 6 in the morning. And my heart sank. Can you imagine your house burning down in the time of COVID? Where are you supposed to go? So that's the kind of, these are the kinds of issues that community foundations band together. And this is what we did back in February with COVID. We early on, you remember back in February, seems like a year ago, the only thing we knew about was that the CDC were doing things and there were national efforts. So we set up a fund. And I remember talking with Jennifer Loving at Destination Home the first week in March, and we realized shelter-in-place orders may come, and we both realized, oh my gosh, the economic implications for our communities are going to be great, particularly those on the edge of homeless or those who are already homeless. And unfortunately, our worst fears came to pass. During a call with our colleague foundations, not just community foundations, private foundations, Hewlett Foundation, Packard, a lot of foundations were on this call. Everybody was trying to figure out what does philanthropy do? And we said, well, we started this fund, we can turn it into a regional response fund and help raise money for all 10 counties. And that's what we did. We rallied together, created a fund. We've raised $51 million to date across a number of different funds. First was the Regional Response Fund, which literally the money's got into the hands of individuals and families most in need. We then realized the nonprofit community was going to be really hurting. So we set up a regional nonprofit emergency fund, again, for all 10 counties. The small business community, many of you run small businesses, support small businesses. We work with the Opportunity Fund we've raised money to get loans and relief dollars to the hands of small businesses. An education partnership was formed when we realized back before summer that so many students and families don't have access to digital resources, Wi-Fi hotspots, the equipment that they need, and then childcare. In order for people to get back to work, we actually have to provide childcare. So we launched 5 different funds. So far, 51 million have been raised, 47 granted out, and we unlocked our own grant making to make it flexible. The other thing we did was partnered with local governments. The city of San Jose and Santa Clara County came together to form Silicon Valley Strong, and Suzanne and I will remember that we did a telethon, a COVID type telethon where we raised funds for that. And then the San Mateo County supervisors also wanted to do something, so we launched San Mateo County Strong. To date, we've raised $9.9 million through Silicon Valley Strong, and San Mateo County Strong has raised $4.9 million. Again, for individuals, families, nonprofits, and small businesses in need in both those counties. On top of these funds, I'm really excited to say that our donors stepped up and have put an additional $195 million to COVID-related causes, 92 million of which stayed right here locally in the Bay Area. And this is what all of those dollars have been able to support. Almost 500,000 individuals and families have been supported. Over 16,000 households have been helped with housing and direct financial assistance. We've given 330 nonprofits emergency grants just to make it through, with this particular focus on arts, education, and childcare, because many of the social service agencies were getting the dollars to help their the individuals and families, clients that they saw. And we've helped over 2,800 small businesses with their assistance. We couldn't have done it without really rallying all sorts of people to help financially to make this happen. And I just wanted to share a couple quotes with you. One from my colleague in Santa Cruz. You know, we border Santa Cruz, then there's so many people go between Santa Cruz and Santa Clara County. And she wanted to know that our dollars really help many of the farm worker families with their rental assistance. And these are the folks who are out in the fields putting food on our tables. And then one of the employees up at the Samaritan House talked about a 29-year-old day laborer who was worried about paying rent. He was out of work. And during this process, he contracted COVID. And thankfully, after weeks in the hospital, he recovered. And one thing he didn't have to worry about is that his wife and his 2 young kids would be evicted because they were able to get rent relief from our COVID work. So these are real stories. I feel honored that we've been able to play this role for our communities here. Well, on top of this, then we had the murder of George Floyd and the calls for racial justice in our country and the calls right here in our region. And we knew that we had to now activate also directly addressing racial justice. We've had a history of it. Prior to me getting there, this foundation has had a history of focusing on racial justice. They've exposed predatory payday lending practices, which disproportionately affected communities of color in our region. In 2015, there was a Math Placement Act that we got passed in Sacramento, which disproportionately affected students of color. They were unfairly held back in their 9th grade math classes, so there was no way they would be able to gain access to advanced math. And in this region, as we know, math and science play critical roles in the types of jobs that are available. And we've supported nonprofits, again, who've really served communities of color, immigrants, and undocumented neighbors. We've recently launched a new strategic direction for the organization. We finished it right as COVID was hitting. And we squarely put addressing systemic disparities as one of our key issues that we just have to address on an ongoing basis. And little did we know COVID and the racial justice issues that came to the fore would validate, unfortunately, the need for that. We know that given our region and the tremendous wealth disparities that exist here, that economic mobility and housing outcomes for vulnerable populations need to be also something that we really focus on. The other reality, as many of you know, we're quite a large organization. We have $10 billion in assets that we have, in philanthropic assets. So how do we really create a culture of effective philanthropy in this region and connecting needs with those who have the means to give? So what we've done is really been able to lean into this vision of what we thought as a community foundation we needed to do, and what we needed to be I had this vision when I took this job that we needed to become the community foundation that this region needed and deserved. And over the last 5 months, we've been putting that vision to reality. Some of the things that we've done recently on racial equity and social justice is we formed a community advisory council. We can't possibly be everywhere with eyes and ears on the ground everywhere. So we have 22 leaders of color from the nonprofit community that sit on this and literally tell us the challenges, what's working, what they're hearing in the trends. We've created, for those people who were hungry for information about how do they even learn about social justice, what organizations should they be funding, what should they be reading, what should they be watching. We actually created a webpage probably within 48 hours of the what happened with George Floyd, put it on our website for everyone to see. So there are resources there if you're wondering the kind of articles or books or what you should be, learning and educating yourself with. It's right there on our website. We update it all the time. Suzanne's team and our team teamed up to create a pledge for foundations in our region to focus on low-income communities and communities of color at this time. And we've just launched a giving guide for Black-led organizations in our 2 counties. So these are the kinds of things that we realize we have to start doing on a regular basis and updating on a regular basis in order to really serve our community. The health and safety is really, really critical. And I love the earlier one, we had the inspiration about building back a better normal, right? And it is exactly how we've been thinking about it. How do we rebuild back better? How do we continue to understand the needs of our community during the pandemic? How do we imagine public and private systems working together using a lens of equity to make sure that all of us come back better, that we don't leave anybody behind, that there are opportunities for all of us to gain a sustainable and fulfilling life, that we have a roof over our heads, food on our tables, and our kids have the access to the education that they need and deserve. And that we all share in this responsibility. I think what we've realized, one thing that COVID has helped us realize is we are all independent, we are all interdependent. If you're not wearing your masks and I run into you, that could affect my health. If I don't wear a mask, that could affect your health. We are all in this together. So how do we really help lead our region through this? I had the honor of being, as Suzanne mentioned, on the Silicon Valley Recovery Roundtable. It just wrapped up, so you'll be hearing more about the recommendations that we're putting out, and it's cross-sector. That roundtable had, folks from large companies, small businesses, not-for-profits, associations, labor unions, all working on this effort. And we've talked about how do we push policymakers, how do we push companies, how do we push nonprofits, how do we together work on ensuring that we are rebuilding back a better Silicon Valley. And the Community Foundation will continue to convene our fellow funders and our donors and philanthropists so that we ensure that we're getting the kind of capital that we need into our communities. And we are just looking forward to being part of one of the coordinating bodies that can bring all groups to the table around shared goals and a shared sense of responsibility. So that is really, I think that is one of my final slides. Yes. So there's our website, 2 things. You can learn more about our coronavirus response and our racial justice information. And soon to come, information on how to give to fire relief, because we're fairly certain that this is going to be a pretty rough fire season. So I am going to stop there. I think I made it right on time. So, love to take questions and dive deep. I hope that gave you a kind of a sense of what we've been busy doing, particularly in the last 5 months, to try to, bring relief and hope and just much needed resources to our communities here, right here.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That was
Sure.
fantastic. A great overview. We're so grateful for your time today. And of course, the Rotarians, you don't have time to read this now. There's a lot of people just thanking you and thanking the foundation
Oh,
for all your work.
gosh.
So know that that's in the chat, and want
Right.
to pose some questions from Rotarians for you.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah, so there is a figure out there about how much the foundation actually provides in local grants each year. And one way I want to ask this question is, what percentage of assets at the community foundation does the foundation actually have control over in terms of where it goes and how it's donated, or if it's donated?
Right. So legally, we have control over everything, right? But in reality, over 90% of our dollars are donor advised, right? So what I've been trying to shift is for our team and our organization as a whole to think about, we have to stop thinking about them as assets under management, because that's very transactional, and we need to start thinking about assets under influence. How do we actually start influencing the 90%? Right? So we're doing a whole lot with our 10% and trying to listen and respond. How do we actually influence the donors that are with us? How do we actually bring them ideas of things that meet their charitable goals or their philanthropic goals? How do we get them to understand what's happening right here in their backyard? And it's a microcosm of what's happening literally not just around the state, but around our country. So that is where we're shifting towards, so that we can actually be much more influential in terms of the dollars that we do manage, the philanthropic dollars that we do manage.
Wonderful. And we got a glimpse of this answer, I think, but hopefully you can expand on this.
Yes.
For many years, the Community Foundation did not provide funding for the arts. Will that change under your leadership?
Yes. So we're going to be starting a small grants program that's responsive to all sorts of issues, including the arts, because we know that was left out. We're going to, double down on things like economic mobility and housing, because they are such pressing issues. Early childhood is going to be another one that we're going to double down, but we're actually going to be designating dollars where we can influence, and support arts and cultural organizations, environmental sustainability organizations, and other issues that we haven't really been in for a while. So it'll allow us to get dollars out quickly and easily, and general support dollars, which are the best kind of dollars that nonprofits need and can use. So you'll be hearing more of that. We're putting all of that kind of information together. We're also want to expand on top of that back to the influencing the real dollars that we have under this. How do we start building much more robust donor circles? We have a donor circle in the arts, and it's had some of the same donors for many years. So how do we expand the donors who are interested in the arts so we can actually get more dollars, as an example, to get more dollars out to organizations here locally?
Wonderful. Is the Community Foundation playing a role or supporting organizations that are helping to address the mental health crisis, in particular for Latinx communities?
Yes, we have. And again, we've been able to do that in the last 5 months because of what's been happening with COVID. And so many of the organizations that have gotten small business relief and the emergency funds to help families and individuals, there have been a number of organizations that specifically have focused on mental health issues. Are we doing enough? No. I don't think we're doing enough as a society in general. And one of the things we're trying to figure out is, as we move forward, how does that fit in, and who do we partner with, not just at the nonprofit level, but also the funding level, as we think of people who, if we want economic mobility, the same people we want economic mobility for have been hardest hit by every tragedy. And that definitely affects how their mental health and the health of their families, both mental health and physical health. So we're still in formulation about what that would look like. We don't have like a mental health grant making category, but we know that it underlines so much, especially right now. So we're in the process, but it's more than on our radar. We know that this is really critical.
Thanks, Nicole. And then what percentage or numbers of low-income families with kids are still unable to get access to the internet. And I just want to call out that Nicole and I had a wonderful conversation yesterday about something similar, that the County Office of Education released the statistic that 38,000 Santa Clara County students don't have Chromebooks yet. 38,000 students. So can you please talk to us about low-income families with kids?
Yeah, it's so those are the ones who don't have Chromebooks. The number is closer to 50,000 in Santa Clara County when you think about access to Wi-Fi. So you might have some kids who have some sort of device beyond their phone, but the access to the internet is, they either don't have it or they don't know, or you see families that might be in a parking lot to try to get free access because some store has it or a McDonald's has it, or a Starbucks might have it. So the number, and again, this is it's an estimated number, right? So we estimate that there's probably 50,000 families based on what the County Office of Education has reported and what some of our nonprofit partners have reported. We think that's grossly undercounted because what it doesn't take into account are family with undocumented members who may not want to raise the issue, right? They may not even want to talk about what they really need at this point in time. So the best guess we have is 50,000 completely impacted. And we all, those of us who've been tracking this know that it's gross. That's probably a low number.
And with the community, what is the community foundation, or is the community foundation engaged in, assisting the families of incarcerated people? Does the organization support any early release options?
Yes, yes. And actually, we are actively trying to raise some dollars there. The governor's about to make an announcement on Friday about a statewide effort around this early release for prisoners, particularly because of COVID. And it's not just about the release, it's where do they get housed when they released, how do they get back services that they want, and how do they get reintegrated into their communities. So there's a $15 million philanthropic goal that we're close to meeting, and some of our donors have stepped up. So that's how we engage, is when we hear something like this, we turn to our donors and try to match what the need is with the kind of giving that we know the donor might be amenable to, or they'd be welcome to figuring out where they can give. So more to come on that. We're still trying to close in on that $15 million number by Friday. So yeah, and a colleague of mine in Southern California has been really carrying the fundraising torch on this, and we've just been trying to add to the numbers.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
And here's a good question, and this is a tough one. Nicole, can you address a concern some folks have? We agree Black Lives Matter, but have significant issues with the organization known by that name. Does our community foundation support the organization? And if so, how?
Yeah, so actually that's why we created a Black-led organization giving guide, so that you would actually be able to identify organizations in your community that are working towards advocating for better services, advocating for resources, advocating for economic justice, advocating for racial justice right here in our region. So that's where we've been turning our help. Our own work has been locally. We are working to also with some networks statewide in California around there are networks of organizations that are Black-led that are working in communities across the state. And so we've been working to figure out how do we get resources to those organizations. So we know that there's a lot of national dollars and at the national level, from all ends going to Black Lives Matter specifically. As with any national organization, when you look to see, well, how much is coming to my community right here and the Black communities right here, it's hard. So we said, well, why don't we elevate the organizations that are really trying to do the hard work right here and get them the support they need so that they can support our communities. So that's been our approach to it.
Thank you. Thanks. And now your favorite question to answer. I know you love this one.
Yes.
Do you anticipate tax measures that will encourage staff holders to take money out and get circulating?
We've had lots of proposals over the last couple years on that, and I don't anticipate that dying down. The one thing that I get concerned about is when people have those tax measures, they're usually really targeting the ultra high net worth, the billionaire class, if you will, right? And they're not recognizing that a vast majority of, say, our donors, their fund size is around $85,000, not billions, $85,000. And many of our donors give out all of their money within a year or two and put money in. Some of our donors have saved for many years to have a $100,000 donor advised fund and don't have the ability to spend it out and then replenish it because they've been saving for years and years and putting some years and years so they can make larger grants. So that's when you know, I've been in Sacramento talking about some of the bills that have been proposed. I said, I understand where you're going, but you can't just have a big hammer on this. You need to understand that you might be affecting just average folks who are giving what they can. And if you really are trying to focus on the billionaire class, well, let's talk about that and what could really motivate them. Because the other thing that class also has the ability to do is to create private foundations or to create other organizations that the rest of us wouldn't need. And so it's complicated, but I anticipate that this conversation is going to continue for a long period of time.
Yep.
So.
Very good.
Yeah.
A couple more here. I think we have another minute. My question is, do you sleep, Nicole?
Yeah,
Not much these days.
That's been challenging. That's been challenging for about 5 months. That's been really challenging.
I bet it has.
Really has been.
You know, kind of big question, but we'll probably end on this one because it might take you a minute to answer it, which is, what are the best ways to overcome systemic disparities and injustice?
Yeah, one, I always bring it back to the personal, right? Which is why we put that website up, webpage up on our website. You
got 30
it
seconds.
may not be your lived experience to, well, let me put it this way. I'll give you an example. My husband is white and we were driving, I can't even remember where recently, and a white man was running, you know, just running, jogging. And I turned to him and I said, what does it feel like to know that you can jog and run anywhere, you can go anywhere, and no one will assume that you don't belong there? And he looked at me and he's like, I have no idea because it's just my normal. I'd never had to think about it. Our son stopped running when Ahmaud Arbery got basically hunted down in Georgia and shot because he was running, this black man was running in a neighborhood where these two guys thought he didn't belong, and so they shot him dead. My son is an athlete. He's a collegiate athlete. So for him to not run because he didn't feel, and I live in Menlo Park, and he's like, I can't do it. So it may not be your lived experience to understand how my son feels. You might feel more like my husband feels, right? Where you don't even think about it. I tell folks we've got to start by understanding it at a very personal level, educating yourself, understanding the experience of others that may have different lives and different experiences than you've had. And then understand the history. Every system in our country was built on the heels of slavery, the financial industry, real estate industry. You know, there are deeds in Santa Clara County and San Mateo County, deeds on homes that still say this home cannot be owned by a Negro, can't be owned by anybody of Asian descent, cannot be owned by an immigrant, cannot be, literally. You might want to check the deeds out to your houses if your house, your house is decades old. One of my colleagues at the foundation, who's from Mexico, her deed in Palo Alto says that, right? So that's the kind of thing that we need to understand, that there are very systems have things in place like that that we would never even think of. Would you
Nicole,
think?
I apologize, but we're coming up to the end of it.
That's just Two things. Thank you. I'm
Thank
done.
you so much, Nicole.
You've provided a lot for us to think about. Absolutely. We're going to send you a thank you note.
Oh,
And in your name, we've laid out, paid for the planting of 46 shade trees in East San Jose to combat heat islands and the environment. By the way, East San Jose is not largely Latino by accident. It's because
Right.
of those particular provisions in the laws.
Yes.
So we'll be sending you a thank you note with that information. Thank
That
you
is
for today.
beautiful. Thank you.
Next
Thank
week's
you.
speaker, we've got Mary Hughes speaking on elections. She's the co-founder and president of Hughes and Company, a strategic communications and political consulting firm in Palo Alto. Don't forget, we've got a few more things. Catherine Tompkinson says that they need volunteers in the county, especially if you have Spanish and Vietnamese speakers, to do some contact tracing. And we've got the Rotary International Conference in June and 12th and 16th of next year. If you want to cut costs, you can maybe share a room with someone. Let them know. Breakout rooms follow immediately after. So, hasta la vista, Rotarians. Stick around if you're going into the breakout rooms or if you just want to chat. Thanks again, Nicole.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.